led by Russia agreed on Thursday to cut their oil output by 10 million barrels per day, or 10% of global supplies. Now, they expected the United States and other producers to join in their effort to prop up prices hammered in the coronavirus crisis. Reductions of 5 million barrels per day are expected to come from other nations to help navigate the deepest oil crisis in decades. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the impact that the coronavirus pandemic has had on global oil sector. Joining me on the program today are Carla Certin, Editor, Oil and Gas Middle East; S.C. Tripathi, former Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas; and Narendra Taneja, Energy Expert. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Carla, let me begin the program with you. Let's first try and analyze and understand the impact that COVID-19 has had on the oil sector as a whole.
Well, I mean, it can't really be overstated. When the coronavirus outbreak first started, the nation that was most hit was China, an economic powerhouse, a major consumer of oil, and a major buyer of oil from the Middle East. So when that demand plummeted, obviously it impacted the oil price as well. Just think about it in the most simplistic way. When there's a lockdown on the city, people aren't driving anymore. They aren't using buses. Factories are closed down. All the, humdrum of daily life shuts down, and that means people are using less oil, and that means the country is importing less oil. So demand completely plummeted because of coronavirus to begin with, and now obviously it's spread worldwide. So you really can't overstate the impact that it's had on the oil market, and we've seen that reflected in the oil price.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about the OPEC Plus meeting, Mr. Tripathi. $10 million barrels per day cut. Is that enough, really, considering that the entire world is in a lockdown mode? Mr. Tripathi.
Well, there are various estimates of current oil consumption, but certainly it may be between 10 to 20%, because this kind of situation had not been seen for many, many years, neither in peacetime nor in wartime, when most of the industry, most of the transport and electricity, which these are the major consumers of fossil fuel, coal, oil and gas, they are all in kind of shutdown mode. So there are various estimates, but I think easily between 10 to 20% demand has come down. It may be more than 20% also when the various states get down to their accounting. So I think it was only natural that they will cut down the production by minimum 10%. I assume that in actual practice it may be a little more.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. Taneja, what is the crux of the issue when you talk or when you look at the price war? Can we expect a further decline in prices as far as oil is concerned?
Well, you see it all. Of course, the coronavirus was the trigger, but then after that we saw, Saudi Arabia and Russia, they started playing their own game, with Saudi Arabia with completely different agenda and Russia with more political agenda than economic. And of course, Russia targeting the United States more than anything else. So I think they just use that as an opportunity for their own kind of, tough war, using oil as a weapon in the case of Russia and Saudi Arabia, because they want to push the prices up. And they thought that they can actually take the hit a little bit in terms of, cheap oil for maybe another 2-3 months, because they have got deep pockets. But then the things started getting a bit out of control, and we have seen President Trump, the United States, putting a lot of pressure on Saudi Arabia to fall in line, in the sense that, to help the, a market to push the prices up a bit. Russia is still a reluctant player, and that's why I'm saying that we need to wait and see what finally happens. Because Russia agenda is more political and more focusing on presidential election in the United States, while Saudi Arabia is more about the market share and all the three superpowers of oil, Saudi Arabia, the United States, and of course Russia. They have got different agendas altogether. And in between, of course, the world is suffering in the sense because the coronavirus has led to the, a drop in demand. My own estimate is in the region of about 30-35%, depending on geography, depending on market and all that. But like in case of India, it's pretty significant. In case of China, is also pretty significant. But nobody has the exact numbers because it's a bit too early. But my sense is that this will continue. But the United States in particular wants to push the prices up to $40 per barrel. I'm talking of Brent. And it works for Russia. It works for Saudi Arabia as well. So my own sense is you will see the prices actually moving up very, very slowly. And by maybe another 2-3 months, somewhere between $35 to $40 per barrel. And behind it's not market, it's politics. And G20, conference is happening today. G20 conference of oil minister, energy minister is happening today, and which is Saudi Arabia is anchoring that. And I think the overall behind the scene agenda is going to be stabilize oil market. And when we talk of stabilizing the oil market, basically the target is to take it to somewhere between $35 to $40 per barrel Brent again. So that seems to be the agenda. But it all depends on the global coronavirus situation as a whole. My sense is that, when it comes to oil and when the recovery starts and all that, oil will be the frontline beneficiary because nothing moves without oil even today. That's the reality. And therefore, oil doesn't need to worry too much. And I think this is all maybe, cyclical in the sense it may not last more than 3 months. And after that, I think oil will start climbing up once again. But we'll have to wait and see for further details.
All right, then taking the discussion forward and also trying to, take the point that Narendra Taneja was making forward. Carla, as far as the oil producers are concerned, why has it been difficult for them to come to a consensus or reach a consensus? What's causing this price war, really?
I mean, it's exactly as he said. Each country has its own agenda. Each country has its own interests. And additionally, each country has its own oil price to balance its budget. I mean, people talk about OPEC as if it's, one entity, but these are individual countries with their own ministers who have their own, needs, agendas, and what they want to get out of the meeting. As he said, there is a mix of politics, but there's also market conditions. So, it's going to happen when you bring together all of these countries for whom, oil is a major economic driver.
And since you're based out of the Middle East, I have to ask you this question. The Middle East drives or is driven by oil. So how much of an impact is all of this going to have on the economies of the Middle East specifically?
I mean, it's certainly going to have an impact. I can tell you, for example, in the previous edition of Oil and Gas Middle East, we spoke with the oil minister of Bahrain. What he said, I'm sure, applies to many other countries. Everyone's reassessing their investment plans. There have been really big plans in the Middle East to grow, further exploration in Abu Dhabi, in Bahrain, in Oman, and other places. Those will now have to be revisited. Is it economically feasible to go ahead with these plans right now? Will international partners come into the Middle East at a time when oil prices are so turbulent? So there's definitely that as a major consideration. And then also just making sure that supply chains are not disrupted, because coronavirus is going to impact operations on another level. That's another issue for oil producers, which obviously are state-run here.
Right. Mr. Tripathi, that's another big problem, isn't it, on the whole? When you look at it, global supply chains have been impacted, have been hampered as a result of the lockdowns that we've seen all over the world. Now, how big a problem is that? And do you believe that needs to be restarted immediately so that the oil producers as well as consumers can benefit?
I think economy will take some time to recover. It can be 6 months, it can be 1 year, it may be even more than 1 year. So therefore, I do not expect that the oil consumption will immediately shoot up. And I think some other major changes are taking place. You see, for last more than 100 years, we had become so dependent on use of energy, and energy meant fossil fuel. So now people see that there can be life with much less consumption of energy and fossil fuel. So I think days of $100 barrel are gone. And possibly, as has been pointed out, OPEC does not work as a one single unit. There is Russia and there is USA, who are as big producers as Saudi Arabia. And the interests of OPEC, mainly Saudi Arabia, is to hold market share, and Russia to demolish the shale oil, shale gas industry in US, because this is an election year. Shale oil, shale gas industry has been a sunrise industry there. They want that industry to continue. So this will continue, and therefore the price range may not be more than $40, $50 at least for next few months. Well, the economy, how it will shape, will first depend on how the coronavirus, different countries have been able to take care of the epidemic. And thereafter, it will take time. it will take time because, there has been disruption in industry, there has been disruption in trade, there has been disruption. Oil supply is, of course, not so much of disruption because everywhere there have been enough surpluses and enough stocks. So oil, I don't think there will be so much a disruption in that sense. And there are countries which can immediately put the wells into production. But economic disruption, I think, has been much more. And countries like India, there has been social disruption also, which we tend to forget, with so much of migrant labor having gone back and migrant labor, being asked to fend for themselves. Of course, government is taking care, but government reach cannot be to each and every person. So there has been disruption and it will take time.
Okay, all right. So coming back to oil, Mr. Taneja, you spoke about it in your opening remarks that there's a lot of politics being played, as far as the oil producers are concerned. President Trump also has been in the forefront really in trying to push the oil prices up. What kind of pressure can we see President Trump exerting on, say, for instance, Saudi Arabia or even for that matter, Russia?
Well, I don't think he can exercise much pressure on Russia. They just won't listen to him. But Saudi Arabia, yes. I mean, the fact is that there is a lot of pressure on Saudi Arabia to basically, cut production. And then also in Saudi Arabia that they should be talking with Russia and in order to convince Russia to cut production. What has happened since the outbreak of coronavirus, Saudi Arabia has been pumping more oil, Russia has been pumping more oil. So on the one hand, there has been demand destruction, quite significant demand destruction. At the same time, they have been pumping more oil because just to protect their market share and they play their own game. So I think, there is a pressure, and basically what the United States wants is very clear. They want the prices to be in the region of $40 because if it's less than $40, their shale industry will get in deep trouble. It's already in trouble. They will get into deep trouble, which means that will lead to unemployment, that will have a negative impact on the economy, which is as it is under pressure, and which means actually that President Trump can lose the election. So he does want to lose the election. So he's going to do everything and anything possible. Put pressure on Kuwait, put pressure on Iraq, put pressure on Saudi Arabia and Nigeria and other producers in order to make sure that they cut the production so the prices are actually brought at least at the level of $40 per barrel. And $40 per barrel actually works for everyone, most important as well, China and India included. So I think that's probably what's happening. Right now, you see the oil oil has always played a very big role in global politics. But right now, I think it's playing even bigger, especially in the context of the presidential election in the United States. But at the same time, I think it's important to remember that global governance, when it comes to energy, has completely collapsed. Because as it is, there is no formal, framework for global governance of energy, oil in particular. OPEC is national energy. And there are different forums. International Solar Alliance is also there. But the fact remains that there is no a framework that the world can basically rely upon. So the result is right now with coronavirus war going on, the world fighting with coronavirus, I think it has gone completely out of control. And the result is what it is in terms of the commodity prices, oil prices, gas prices. The picture is even worse. And at the same time, like we in India, we may like it, enjoy it because prices are so low. But this is fine for another, month or so. But in the medium term, it's going to be India because we've got 10 million Indian in the Gulf countries. And Gulf countries' economy is basically oil economy. What happens if tomorrow, they run out of their savings? It's to halt and that kind of picture, and then they start sending Indians back home. So there are many scenarios that we need to be worried about. But my own sense is that it's too early to really say anything because we don't know which direction coronavirus is heading. We have no clear picture on that. All we know is that there are some green shoots in some countries like in Germany and a few others, but it's a bit too early. But one thing is very clear, that it's not going to be the end of the world. When the world basically returns to normal, it's going to take long time, very long time. But when it does, oil will be actually one of the first frontline beneficiaries, in the sense would be one of the first one to recover, because our economy, the global economy, is still very much an oil economy, and it's not changing anytime soon. And with the recovery, oil will be the beneficiary as a frontline, simply because it's very easy to actually pump up the production. It is very easy to actually go for recovery if you're using oil as the basis for the main source of energy. So there are many benefits and pluses, but I think as far as India is concerned, we need to be extremely careful, and we should not be celebrating very cheap oil, because ultra low prices for oil is bad for India, the same way as ultra high prices are bad for India, and actually for the global economy as a whole. Ultra low prices, which we are experiencing today, very bad for global economy, as the same way as prices if they go beyond $80 per barrel.
Okay, all right, all right. So then, taking the discussion forward now, Carla, as far as the oil producers are concerned, is there a way out really for them from this particular situation that they are presently in?
Well, I mean, the only way out really is for the coronavirus pandemic to die down, for quarantines to be lifted, and then for, life to go on as usual, so that, we can see more money flowing, see more oil being used, and then that will fix the situation for them. Other than that, I mean, the next best thing is what is actually happening, that OPEC is coming to a deal. Oil producers worldwide are realizing, there is an importance to cutting production right now. That will help stabilize the oil price, the oil market, and obviously will benefit the global economy as a whole.
Okay, all right. Right, so Mr. Tripathi, what does all this then mean for India? Because how much of an advantage can we really take as far as low oil prices are concerned? Because let's not forget, at the end of the day, the prices are very low, but we are in a lockdown as a whole. So how much of consumption is actually happening?
Well, I saw some reports saying that 20% down petrol and diesel last month, which was not a full month of lockdown. So it seems that other than LPG, where of course the consumption is not going down because the homes and hearts have to keep running. Petrol, diesel, and other products, which are the major products, petroleum products, their consumption has gone down by 20% or more. And in this month, April also, it may be 20% or even it may be higher. So what we should do is, first, of course, to tackle coronavirus, and then phase manner lifting the lockout and putting the industrial wheel in motion slowly. So we should take advantage of the low prices, fill up our strategic reserves, also keep stocks in our refineries, etc. So this will help both current account and fiscal deficit. And thereafter, hopefully, if as Mr. Taneja says, the oil prices are neither too low nor too high, they don't go beyond $50 per barrel. And hopefully all the 10 million of NRIs who are working in Middle East, they continue to stay there and continue to have gainful employment, continue to send, remittances. Then I think our economy can slowly pick up, because we need to spend not merely 1.72 lakh crores, which the Prime Minister has announced, of which nearly half is already in the budget. Maybe the additional is only about 50,000-60,000 crore. We need to give a bigger package to SMEs and thereafter to many sectors also, which have badly been affected. So the requirement of funds in India will be quite significant, and we should take advantage in, this is like a bonanza where the prices have come down. We should fill up the price level by raising the taxes. Already 3 rupees per litre we have raised, so that should give us about 40-50,000 crores of rupees in a full year. So that we should use, and maybe if there is opportunity, some more, and make our economy pick up again.
So what's the best way forward, Mr. Taneja?
Well, I think the best way is first, of course, to control and contain, coronavirus. That's the key thing for us. And number two, of course, at the same time, to make sure that, we use this time in order to streamline our oil and gas sector to the extent possible, carry on some reforms on the changes and all that's required. And at the same time, make sure that, we continue to focus on domestic oil exploration production. Right now, Government of India's company like ONGC, Oil India, is suffering because the price is just too low for them to feel comfortable. And also private sector companies such as Cairn Energy and a few others. So I think, when it comes to companies producing oil in India, they might need some kind of assistance from the government. We don't know that. But at the same time, what is important is that we use this time and this opportunity in order to relook the energy sector as a whole, and wherever necessary, recast it, rework it, and if possible, retool it. Because, petroleum and natural gas sector is one sector which is actually crying for for further reforms as far as India is concerned. But looking at globally, I think a country like India, since today we are holding also G20 meeting of the energy minister, it's also important for India to work for some kind of energy governance. So energy governance which helps countries like India, emerging economies like India. Right now, since there is practically no energy global governance, the developed countries take advantage of it, and they are in a better position, even in the circumstances like we are experiencing today, to benefit from it. And we have also seen, since there is no global governance, as countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia, they start playing their own game. Instead of going along with the world, helping the world in times like this of coronavirus, they started playing their own chess game, which was extremely, extremely unfortunate. Good that OPEC meeting has taken place. Good that G20 meeting is taking place today. But I think that's not enough. Occasional meetings are okay. But what we need is basically a kind of a framework, an intergovernmental framework for global energy governance with focus more on fossil fuels like oil and gas. Because majority of countries in the world, oil and gas remain the mainstay and will remain so for a long time to come. So I think we should be using this time when people get time to think, especially when it comes to countries and the leaders involved in global energy governance, to use this so that, when we come out of coronavirus, oil and gas sector world over, energy sector as a whole the world over, looks healthier and it looks more equitable and it looks more just.
Okay, all right. Close the show for us, Carla, with your concluding remarks.
Well, for oil producers, it really is reevaluating their investments. From what we hear from analysts, the Q2 is still going to be difficult. We should start seeing an uptick in the second half of the year. So they need to reevaluate their investments, secure their supply chain, and essentially wait it out. That's the best thing that they can do right now, is just make sure that they are, cutting costs, staying as lean and streamlined as possible until this worldwide crisis is over.
Okay. All right. With that, it's a